My name is retired Marine Staff Sergeant Octavio Sanchez, and this is my story.
Medically retired with an honorable discharge. Some of his awards include the Purple Heart, the Navy Marine Corps Achievement Medal, and the Combat Action Risk. Staff Sergeant Sanchez, the Dodgers thank you for your service, sacrifice, and dedication to our country.
I was born in Los Angeles in 1980. My dad, coming from the working class and working construction, who migrated from Mexico to the United States, always had a hard work ethic. My mother was a stay-at-home mom, and we ended up making our way to the Inland Empire. I grew up in the city of Fontana, and at a young age, I would go with my father to the local market, and he'd cash his checks, and there at that location, he would, we'd always get a snack or whatnot, but behind the counter, as a kid, I remember looking at these barracks covers. Really, it were firefighter covers, they were police officer covers, military covers, also known as hats to many. But I had just a drive, and I remember at a young age, I would always just tell myself, like, I want to wear one of those hats one of these days. Growing up, my older brothers, I had two older brothers, and they were in the gang lifestyle. And so kind of, not that I was attracted to it, but eventually I would follow them in their footsteps as well. And it was in 10th grade where I ended up, getting involved in an altercation that got me kicked out of high school. Expelled from the Fontana Unified School District, and caught me a one-way ticket to Mexico to spend some time with my grandparents. As I spent 4 months there in Zacatecas, I ended up coming back home, reintegrating into high school. But this time it was by way of El Monte, California. And I just had a whole new mindset, coming back. During my time there at Mount View High School in the city of Almani, I came across just some good friends. And understanding what I wanted to do, I wanted to become a cop. One of them was in the Poli program for the Marine Corps, and through him, I got connected with a recruiter. And as soon as I graduated high school, I think a couple months after graduation, I left for the Marine Corps, and that was in 1998. Joining the Marine Corps was one of my best decisions that I ever did in my life. There is just a brotherhood there that you'll hold on for a lifetime, and I was super excited. And I worked for a little bit prior to departing, but on August 18th, 1998, it was my first day in boot camp, and it was a culture shock. I served with 2nd Battalion, 5th Marines as a machine gunner, and my time there was awesome. A lot of good times, a lot of bad times. I could look back at those bad times now, and I consider them good times. Freezing cold, a lot of shooting, just a lot of training, a lot of good training. And so in between there, I got married. We had children, my wife and I.
We saw each other for a few months off and on still, and then I ended up getting pregnant with my second child. In November of '99, we get married, He ends up leaving to Okinawa in January of 2000. I give birth to my second son in February of 2000. And so I was alone raising, two little boys until he came back in June of 2000. He was able to meet finally our second son. And life was good. I ended up getting pregnant with our third child and had her in March of 2003.
The thought process of getting out, you struggle with it. How are you going to provide for your family? But I really loved the Marine Corps, but I also wanted to pursue my career in law enforcement. And so I know it's through the hand of God how things work out. I did take my test for LAPD. I would find out later on that I did pass, but I found out after I had re-enlisted for a second tour in the Marine Corps. That re-enlistment, I ended up getting orders to Weapons Field Training Battalion, which is a marksmanship battalion. And what we do there is basically we teach the recruits who are still in boot camp the marksmanship phase of the Marine Corps. And so I spent a couple years there at Weapons Field Training Battalion. But shortly after that, the war had already kicked off in 2003 in Iraq.
And notified Congress of his intention to attack our fellow citizens.
U.S. is sending increasing numbers of special operations.
An invasion that could come as soon as tonight, as huge force prepares to invade on a moment's notice.
This hour, American and coalition forces are in the early stages of military operations.
And Marines moving to their attack points in northern Kuwait.
And I got orders back to an infantry unit, 1st Battalion, 5th Marines, Charlie Company. It was in November of 2004 that I arrived there as a sergeant to 1st Battalion, 5th Marines. And we did a quick workup. And in March of 2005, we deployed to Ramadi, Iraq. We were the quick reaction force to the company. What that means is we had gun trucks, Humvees with machine guns on them, and we would go out on mobile patrols, utilizing the vehicles, also foot patrols. But we were really there just in case of one of our units was out and they got into contact or a firefight, and then they needed to be resupplied with water, with ammunition, with firepower. That's what we would do. And so it was nonstop. We were constantly going.
He had called me, and at that time we were thinking of doing some type of refinance or something through the VA for our new home that we had barely bought like the year prior. So he had called me and he said, hey, somebody's going to call you, give you some information about this and whatnot. So I was like, okay, cool. He said, and I'll call you tomorrow after. And I said, okay, sounds good. So then come June 16th, 2005, I get the call. And it's, I believe at the time he was Staff Sergeant Casanova. He calls me and he's like, hi, is this, Mrs. Sanchez? And I said, yes, this is her. My husband told me you were going to call. And he's like, okay. So he starts just speaking and I'm like, okay, I heard nothing of what he said. And I said, okay, so like, what does this, have to do with the house and the refinance? And he's like, let me start over. So I said, okay. He said, your husband's been in an explosion.
Through my time in the Marine Corps and all my training, I never expected what took place on June 16th, 2005, and that's our vehicle rolled over an improvised explosive device.
And I'm like, okay, I just talked to him yesterday, and he's like, and he's, injured. And I go, oh, okay. So now I'm like, okay, now I'm understanding. And he said he's been burned 40% of his body, and he has a broken arm, and he's coming home. And I remember saying, but he's alive, right? And he said, yeah. And I go, okay. So didn't, I mean, maybe I think back, 40%, that's a good amount of being burned. So, but at that time, I didn't take it like that. I took it like, okay, like he got a burn and a broken arm. He's coming home. Great. Like, I'm happy. My husband's coming home. He's going to be out of danger.
And the explosion was pretty gnarly. It was something of power, and we rolled over the IED, which we had no idea was there. It launched the vehicle 40 feet up in the air, and upon it landing, it killed my gunner. And I would later on find out that the actual initial explosion killed also my commanding officer. The moment the explosion took place and the vehicle was launched in the air, it's as if there was a slowing down of time. There's a flashing of your life that takes place before you, not fully understanding what is going on, but Pictures of my children, of my wife, were processing through my mind. Now, the vehicle is launched. The vehicle hits the ground. There's screeching metal. There is explosions going on. I'm stuck in my vehicle at this moment. I cannot exit my door. It is pinned shut and I'm burning. And as I'm burning, I think to myself, this cannot be happening to me. There is a moment of despair, a moment of anxiety, a moment of not understanding what is going on. A moment of, there is no way that I'm about to die in this fashion. I do everything that I can to get out. In desperation, I find myself going through the driver's door. And as I come out, there's a wall of lead just coming towards me. I'm getting shot at, and I'm not hit one time. Yes, I'm engulfed in fire. I'm trying to do everything in my physical power to extinguish the flames. I stop, I drop, I roll. I have all my gear. I have grenades, I have live ammunition. My rifle is on the floor. Canteens full of water, and so I cannot extinguish the flames. What happened was the vehicle, as the explosion penetrated the cab of the vehicle, we were doused with the fuel of the vehicle, and so we had diesel fuel on us. And I'm trying to extinguish this. I'm picking up dirt, trying to throw it on me. I can't. In and through this, as we're getting shot at, Marines are running towards me, and they put me out with a fire extinguisher. And I remember enraged at that time. Adrenaline is pumping through my brain, through my body. I pick up my rifle. I'm trying to engage the enemy, and I don't even have the strength to squeeze the trigger. And I look at my hands, and they're green, they're mucousy, they look like snot. I switch the rifle over to my left hand. I try to engage, and I can't. It's like a nightmare. I take cover. The Marines, get me. I want to know what's going on with the rest of my Marines in my truck. They tell me everybody's out of the vehicle. At that moment, I still run. We run to the triage area. They lay me down. They start cutting off all my uniform. And at that moment, when my adrenaline starts wearing down, the excruciating pain of these burns start to take place. And I'm still in that fog of war, not realizing what's going on. There's a firefight, you can hear it. The corpsman is tending to my wound, sticking me with morphine. They get the medevac vehicle there. And so they load me up, and they load up two of my Marines in the vehicle, along with a couple other Marines who were injured. It was the beginning of my fight for my life. And as we're traveling to Camp Ramadi, which was the big camp, there was a team waiting for me. And so as they got me in there, I remember they started working, they were talking to me. And as all this is going on, I don't even know how to explain, but it was just moving parts that were going on, and they were doing what they were trained to do. They got me stable. They flew me out to Germany. Meanwhile, there's logistics going on as far as the communication between the command and my family back in the States, whether they're going to fly to Germany because they don't know if I'm going to survive.
So I hang up, and I'm like sitting there, and I'm like, okay, he's 40% burned. His arm is broken. I need to call his mom. So then I thought, you know what? I don't want to call her. Let me drive down there. So I get my kids, and we get to his mom's house. And, I tell her, hey, I got a phone call that, he's burned 40% and he has a broken arm, but, he's coming home. They're going to fly him to Germany. So a day or two passed, and I heard nothing. And I'm like, okay, this is weird. Like, nobody's telling me nothing. How's my husband? So Finally, I get a call. I don't know who it was at the time, but that person got me in contact with a military wife. She did so much digging and found out all this information, and she calls me and she says, I found your husband. He's in Landstuhl, Germany, and I have this number where the unit that he's at. He's in intensive care, and they're waiting for your call. So I call the number, and the nurse answers, and I said, I'm Vanette Sanchez. I was told my husband's there, and I'm just basically calling to speak with him, see how he's doing. Silly to think that I was going to just get on the call with him. So then I asked her how, and she said, I said, is he able to speak? And she said, no, he's not. He's sedated, and he's in an induced coma. She said, and he's fighting for his life. And I said, okay, I was told he's burned 40% and, he has a broken arm. What do you mean he's fighting for his life? And so she said, I'm going to get the surgeon on the phone. So he gets on the phone, and he said, hi, and I said, hi, just, checking, see how my husband's doing. And he said, he's in really bad shape. And I said, okay, let me know what the details are. And he said, so he's burned 70% of his body. And I said, okay, I was told he was burned 40. That's a big difference. That's almost 100%. I'm thinking in my head, 70%. And he goes, yeah, he said, and I said, how bad are the burns? He said, they're 3rd-degree burns. And I said, okay. I said, his arms, legs, he says his arms and legs are still intact. And I remember that word because I'm like, well, what do you mean they're still intact? Why wouldn't they be? He said, and he's required quite a bit of resuscitation. We've had to resuscitate him quite a few times. And I'm like, oh my God, I didn't know the severity of it. So now I'm like, okay, my husband is fighting for his life. He said his vitals are not stable. He's lost a lot of blood. We've had to do a blood transfusion, and we're trying to get him to San Antonio, Texas. At the time, it was called Brooke Army Medical Center. He said, we're trying to get him flown out there. As soon as he's stable, we're going to fly him out there because that's the best chance of him surviving. Another thing that I had asked him, I said, well, if my husband's fighting for his life and we don't know if he's going to make it, I need to be there. And so I said, how can I get out there? He said, that's not a possibility because the flight out here, I don't know, are X amount of hours. The minute that he's stable, we're flying him to Texas. You'll be flying out here and we might be flying him over there. So basically stay put. And I'm like, how do I stay put? What if he dies and I'm not even there to say goodbye? And by this time I'm like in shock, denial, and she tells me, is there, anything that you want me to say to him? And I said, just tell him that I love him and that keep fighting. He has 3 kids to come home to. And I said, can you just say my kids' names? Say it in his ear. Tell him that I love him. And she was like, okay. And I said, I asked, how bad is his face burned? She said, it's burned pretty bad. She said, but I can see his eyelashes, so his eyes are okay. I said, okay, that's good. That's good. That was something positive. She said his eyes are okay. His ears are okay. I remember her saying that. She said he's burned from the nose down. And I said, okay. So we're looking at maybe 3 days after his injury. He's still there in Germany. But I get a call, and he said, get your bags ready because they're flying your husband out to Texas, and we're going to fly you out. We're booking you this flight the next day. My grandma, who raised me, I had called her and I said, I need you to take care of my kids. I need to go be with Octavio, and so I need you to watch them. I'll be back soon, as soon as he's better. Not thinking of how long his recovery was going to be.
Now my wife dealing with, how am I going to explain to my kids? Now my wife was extracted from my children to San Antonio. My children are at home in California. So the separation between my wife and the kids, she flies there. My wife, and through logistically had to maneuver through all this, has to come and meet me because we don't know if I'm going to live or die. And now she's dealing with having to bring the kids back, which the kids to this day, they struggle with that. That was something traumatic in their life. One, their dad is gone. Now their mom is gone. And so we navigated through these 2 years of trying to figure it out. There's no written standard operating procedure on how these things go.
Then we fly out the next day, me and Octavio's mom. The doctor comes out and literally he's like in a suit, just like the movies. I'm like, I can't even believe this is real. He comes out and he said he did good on the flight. I remember him telling me he did really good on the flight. He's a fighter. And I was like, okay, good. Like he made it here. So then he said, we're going to get him situated and in his room. And as soon as he's ready, we'll let you guys come in. So I said, okay. I walk in there and his head is like this big. It's super duper swollen. His head is shaved. He has a little bit of hair right here. He's got all these machines hooked up to him. They're breathing for him, everything. And he has this mesh over his chest. And me still in denial, like this can't be happening. This can't be him. I pulled down the mesh because he used to have my name tattooed. So I said, what are the chances of some other guy having Vanette on their chest? So I pulled down the mesh and, my name's there. And I knew it was him, but even though he looked different, I knew it was him, but I had to see that. I had to make sure. And his eyes are closed, they're swollen, and his head is kind of just like moving. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. His fingertips were black and shriveled, every single finger. And I remember saying, gosh, like how is his finger going to get back to normal? The tip of his nose looked like it was just hanging on by like a thread, like it was about to fall off. It made me even nervous to, when the little tubes on his nose, it would make me nervous because I'm like, wait, like, it's gonna fall off, and I didn't want to because I wanted them to fix, thinking it could be fixed. Then after we stepped out and the doctor stepped out to talk to me, and he told me, he said he's in bad shape, he's stable, his vitals are good right now, but starting tomorrow we're gonna get him into surgery ASAP because they needed to amputate his fingers. I remember saying, okay, said it doesn't matter, just make sure my husband lives. So we have 3 kids and we need him. It was Dr. Horvath. And he said, okay. So they started doing physical therapy the best they could. And I remember he sat at the edge of his bed and his legs are like so skinny. And they let his legs hang, and it started like that. That was like one day. Another day it was like, we're gonna stand him up. So then they stood him up. And then another day came, and there was these 2 physical therapists, Mike and Patrick. I remember they had told him stand up. So he stood up and he was like this. And they were like, Vanette, come here. And I'm like, okay. So I go and they're like, stand in front of him. And I said, okay. So I stood in front of him and and he's standing up like this. And then they tell Octavio, take a couple steps. And he's like, okay. And he takes a couple steps as I'm standing there. And they were basically just giving us a moment to hug. So we hadn't been able to hug or anything. And I thought that was so sweet.
I go from 206 pounds to 120 pounds. I'm trying to regain my strength because I had to learn how to walk again. And all the while she's there alongside, right? Still having to deal with the kids. There came a day where the introduction back to my kids, because My kids didn't know me this way.
My uncle flew out there and brought my daughter because she was 2 years old at the time. And every time I would call to check on her, they would tell me that she was crying, walking around, asking for her mom. My uncle flew out and brought my daughter to me. I walked out of the hotel and I was standing at the sliding door, and I see them getting off of the car. And he puts her down, and she has her little pigtails, and she comes running, and she's like, "Mommy." And I'm like bawling my eyeballs out. Like I remember that day like it was yesterday. After a month of not seeing my kids, they're at my grandma's, my dad brings my boys. So, I had talked to my sons and I said, okay, dad looks different, but it's him. And when you look at him, just look in his eyes and you'll know. I said, he looks very different. He got hurt, and, I tried to explain the best I could to a 5- and 7-year-old. They walk in and they see him. And my 7-year-old, he's quiet. He's still a quiet boy, still a good boy. He's just quiet, staring. And my 5-year-old looks at him and he says, "That's not my dad." And he starts hitting himself in the head like that.
Because I was unrecognizable. And so, it was something that I had to be reintroduced to my kids, and my wife had to deal with this.
And he said, "Yeah, it is, it is your dad. Just look at his eyes. Look at him." He said, "That's not my dad." And he just kept hitting himself. And so we had taken him out of the room, and I just was talking to him. And he warmed up a little bit after that. And then, the next day it got better, and the next day it got better.
When you're in a combat zone, you always long for the day where you're going to come home, right? And you envision it by way of, embracing your family with a hug and a kiss and just that love that you're waiting for, right? To come home to. And I felt like I missed that, in the way in which my exit was from the Marine Corps. Although I had my family around me, it was a lonely exit because it wasn't how I envisioned my exit. I felt like there was much more for me to do. What you're looking forward to in your career as a military man, as you become that staff non-commissioned officer and you start getting ready to lead troops, you look forward to that day. And so it didn't happen that way, but it's okay. I can sit back and realize that, you know what? My ways are not the Lord's ways. And as things got situated, it took me 4 months to get out of ICU. 1 month to get out of ICU, 3 months in the burn ward on 4 Northwest, I believe, the 4th floor, and eventually out to as an outpatient.
I remember one day I get sick. I'm super sick. I'm not feeling good, and I'm like, trying to take care of Octavio, trying to take care of the kids, but yet I'm sick. I'm so sick. I'm throwing up. I said, "Oh my gosh, I think I have food poisoning." So I told Octavio, I have to go to the hospital. It's like, okay, let's go. There we go with our 3 kids. They did blood work, and so then we're still waiting the ER. And I said, "You know what? I'm gonna leave. I can't wait no more." They had done blood work, and they're waiting to call me back in the room. I said, "I'm leaving." We get a call. The nurse calls me, and she said, I know you left, but I wanted to call you to tell you that we got the results of your blood work. And I'm like, great. In the midst of all this, something's probably wrong with me, and now what am I gonna do? And so she says, "I just wanted to let you know, I'm not sure if you're aware, but you're pregnant." And I'm like, what? I remember I was devastated. God forgive me, but I was so devastated. I love my son so much, my 17-year-old, but I was like, how am I gonna have another child when I'm taking care of Octavio like a child, plus my other 3 kids, and I'm pregnant? Like, I was devastated. And so I tell my son nowadays, I say, because he's like, "Yeah, Mom, I know it was an accident. I know it was an accident." I said, "No, you weren't. You were not planned, but you were in God's plans." And I said, "You weren't in mine, but you were in God's plans." I said, and that's I mean, that's a beautiful thing, right?
There was a lot that took place. I wanted to leave after a year, but it didn't work out. So we were there for 2 years. I retired from the Marine Corps in 2007, and we made our way back home to California. And so after my retirement in 2007, I lived a life where I reverted back to my old nature. What I mean by my old nature is I went back to drinking alcohol and leaning on drugs to get by. I came to a point in my life in which I was driving drunk, and the Lord imparted in my heart, and He said, I didn't spare your life for this. And this is what I heard in my spirit. And I knew what He was talking about. And at that moment, my drunkenness became soberness, and my response to His call was, forgive me, Lord. I'm all in. And this was in 2013. I got home and it was different. And it was that moment, you know, and as I rededicated my life and I started going to church, the Lord started doing a work in my life and opening up certain doors. My good friend Jesse was like, hey, Octavio, there's this place, man. It's called Frontsight. I want you to come with me. It's a ministry, bunch of veterans. Come with me. And so, man, he heckled me for the longest time. And so much so that I was just like, I gotta go, because this dude's just not gonna get off of my back, you know? And I told him, hey, Jesse, you know what, bro, I'll pick you up. And so I remember I walked through the doors and the hallway was filled with veteran pictures. And we got to the end of the hallway and they had a coffee bar at the end. And there were a few veterans there just chopping it up, just having a conversation. And they just turned around and looked at me and they said, hey, brother, hey, how? And it was something surreal, but more than anything, it's what I had been longing for. And I was blown away by it, right? And I didn't know these men, but I knew them. And those who are military guys will understand this. The language, the lingo, but now also they were believers in Christ, and we just started having a great time of fellowship, what we know as camaraderie. And I never left. That day, you know, I got there and we just had such a great time. I left, I dropped off Jesse at the house.
And he gets back and he's like, babe, he's like, that place is pretty cool. And I was like, really? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, well, what? And he's like, well, you know, there's a bunch of other guys that were in the military, they're veterans. Like, it's just like, it's a family.
That was in 2016. Fast forward to 2019. You know, there's a change of command. And the director, the former director, you know, decides that, you know, he's been called elsewhere. And so there's an opportunity for somebody to step in and take over at Frontsight. And so the board reaches out to me and they ask me, a good friend of mine, Junior, and he says, hey, Octavio, you know, would you be interested in overseeing Frontsight? You know, would you be willing to take the director position of Frontsight? And, you know, my initial reaction was like, let me pray about it. I know the effect that Frontsight had on my life. I had seen the change that it made in my life, the opportunities that it gave me. But I also saw the effect that it had in other veterans' life and what it was doing to other veterans. And so he's like, all right, go ahead, you know, take your time. And I get a phone call the next day and he was just like, so what did the Lord say? And I started laughing and I'm like, man, there was no grace period here, right? Like, but I knew in my heart that this is something that was important. And so I told Junior, I said, yeah, Junior, I'll take you, I'll take the Lord up on this, you know. There's just a statistic that says a civilian might speak about suicide 200 times before he actually commits the deed, whereas a veteran only speaks about it 5 times before he actually does it. And so it was so important for me to share the living hope that we have in the Lord, and really the camaraderie that we have here that we once had in the military. It's here, it's alive, it's thriving, but the Spirit of God, right?
I believe that God really wanted him here for a reason. This is where he's meant to be.
It is a prominent moment in my life that changed my life forever. And now I can look back and understand that everything that I've gone through in my life has just been a training scenario for the opportunity to get to minister to people. I didn't know what I was in for. I thought maybe I would get shot, you know. Never in my mind did I think that I would suffer 70% third-degree burns through my entire body. Never did I imagine that I would, you know, lose the use of my left hand or have my right hand amputated for that matter. I can see now all the intricate pieces in my life, you know, joining the Marine Corps, being an infantry machine gunner, being an infantry squad leader, and in that teaching Marines the preparation to go into combat, teaching classes, and then also the Weapons Field Training Battalion, it taught me to teach classes. And so looking back at all of that, the Lord was kind of preparing me for what was going on. There was a clear message, you know, in life and in death. And I can say that I was there at the doorstep of death, you know, flatlining 3 times and then resuscitating me 3 times. And the clear message was to share the gospel, right? To share the Lord Jesus. Some might say, how could you pray when this happened to you? And I'm like, how could I not when I'm still here? These injuries have caused me really to just get so much closer to the Lord. The beauty of it is that now I get to share that. I get to share my story. And it's not perfect. My life isn't perfect. It's still a story that is being written, a story that comes with pain and suffering. Not just for me, but for what my wife might be going through and what my children are currently still going through. That which happened some 20 years ago, the effects of it still is something that my children are dealing with. And so it's a constant battle. There's still continued work. We still need to work. And I say that because there are 22 veterans that commit suicide every single day, and that number can fluctuate. And we might not be able to reach all of them, but if we can get to one, then we're doing something right. The war here in the United States within our military community still is ongoing. And so we still have a mission, and we want to make sure that we get to our veterans who are hurting, who are struggling, and not just them, but their family members also. For those who are thinking or might possibly be thinking about the struggle that they have with suicidal tendencies, I would say this. In the military, whether Marine Corps, whether Army, whether Air Force, whether the Navy, whether the Coast Guard or Space Force for that matter, we have obstacle courses. There's a beginning to an obstacle course, and there's an end to the obstacle course. In between that obstacle course, there's highs and lows. You have to low crawl. You have to jump over things. You have to, you know, go through difficulties. There's seasons or areas in our lives, difficult times in our lives. And what I want to say is that it's just a day, you know. There's a lifetime, and your struggle might just be today. And I say this because if we could get past today, then tomorrow is a new beginning. And there is time to rejoice in that new beginning. And ultimately, sometimes we listen to the lie. And so what I want to share is, hey, understand that you might be going through that obstacle course, but just how there's a beginning to the obstacle course, there's an end. And that struggle that you're going through right now, it will pass. And understand that as you have completed the obstacle course and you have gone up that rope and you have come down, now you know that is behind you. And those days might come and go, but remember, you always have somebody who's cheering for you. And that's what we do here at Frontsight. We are those that come alongside and struggle with you together, and we rejoice with you together. And we do that through spiritual guidance. We do that through the camaraderie, staying together, and really calling on one another. We want to be that family. We want to be those brothers and sisters that come alongside and say, hey, today might be bad, but wait for tomorrow, because we can rejoice tomorrow and we will be victorious.